Welcome to the debate. Have you ever listened to a pop rap track? You know, you're bobbing your head to the upbeat production, and then suddenly you realize the lyrics you're actually singing along to are incredibly bitter?
Oh yeah, it hits you out of nowhere.
Right. And in audio production and musicology, we refer to this as information asymmetry. It's this profound tension between a commercially polished, accessible musical structure and a core message that is surprisingly dark or cold.
The contrast is exactly what makes it interesting.
Exactly. So today we are conducting a deep dive forensic lyrical and audio analysis of the track Good Goodbye by Linkin Park featuring Pusha T and Stormzy off their One More Light album.
It's such a dense track to unpack.
It really is. And I'll be arguing that the song's lyrics and vocal delivery reveal a weary frustration that is just, well, masked by sarcastic bravado. I hear aggressive rhymes and a polished beat that actually signal unresolved exhaustion and real friction beneath the surface.
And see, I hear that exact same friction, but I interpret its purpose completely differently. I'll be arguing that this track isn't a defensive shield at all.
No?
No, not at all. It's a highly strategic, boundary-pushing moment. The band is deliberately utilizing commercial hip-hop structures and heavyweight collaborations, not as a defense mechanism, but as a weaponized tool to enforce absolute personal boundaries.
Okay, well, to really understand my position on this, we have to isolate the signal this track is broadcasting right from the jump, specifically in Chester Bennington's vocal delivery.
The primary verses, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. If you strip away the bright synths and that bouncy, stadium-friendly 90 BPM rhythm, the core of the song is defined by a deeply sarcastic undertone. What you find isn't genuine empowerment, you find sheer exhaustion.
I mean, the lyrics are definitely aggressive.
Oh, they're biting. He calls out venomous enemies and snaps with, like, genuine venom. I've been here killing it longer than you've been alive, you idiot.
The delivery on idiot is incredibly sharp.
Right, it's spat out. And musically, that matters. In audio production, hard consonants, like the hard K's in killing and the sharp T in idiot, they actually hit the human ear like a percussion instrument.
Interesting.
So when the beat is smooth and pop-oriented, but the vocalist is driving these harsh, abrasive consonants into the mic, it creates an auditory friction. Your brain registers a bouncy pop song, but your nervous system registers a verbal attack.
Sure, the contrast is stark.
And on top of that, listen for the micro strains in his vocals during those verses. There's a slight cracking, a raspy edge that suggests his voice is being pushed to its limit, not in triumph, but in frustration.
You hear that as weariness.
I do. Telling someone to pack it up and disappear, and then taunting them with, hope you have fun, you got a lot to discuss on the bus headed back where you from, that's not the language of someone who is healed. It's the language of someone who is deeply tired of their critics using sarcasm as a shield.
I hear the weariness, I really do, and that vocal string you're pointing to is undeniable. But to call it a defensive shield deeply misunderstands the architecture of the hip-hop genre they are actively stepping into here.
How so?
Well, we have to view this song as a deliberate structural choice. Linkin Park didn't just write a rock song. They leveraged the boastful tropes of hip-hop, specifically by bringing in Pusha T and Stormzy. This is a strategic pivot to claim power.
But how does bringing in guest rappers change the fundamental exhaustion in the lead vocalist's delivery, though?
Because it changes the rules of engagement. Look at Pusha T's definitive lyrical boundary. He comes in and drops the line, goodbye, good riddance, the period is after every sentence.
Right.
The period is after every sentence. That is not weariness. That is an assertion of absolute unshakable control and finality over a situation that he literally describes as a hell date and a hailstorm.
It's definitely a hard pivot in tone.
Exactly. Think about it. When you survive a hailstorm, you don't secure your house with sarcasm. You secure it with ironclad boundaries. Pusha T is famous for his staccato, hyper-confident flow. He raps deep in the pocket, completely unbothered by the beat.
He is very grounded there.
Right.
The commercial sound and that aggressive hip-hop rhythm are weaponized here to declare that the negotiation is over.
Okay, I see why you think that, and Pusha T definitely brings a completely different energy to the track. But let's dig into that very assertion of finality, because this brings us to our first major point of contention.
Let's hear it.
You bring up the idea that the negotiation is over, that the boundary is set. But if we look at the structural repetition in the opening lyrical rhythm of the core song, the evidence points the other way.
In the verses? Yeah, the speaker repeats the phrase, "and it makes you so mad somebody else could be stepping in front of you," followed immediately by, "and it makes you so mad that you're not the only one, there's more than one of you."
Yes, he's pointing out their insecurity.
But he's hyper-fixated on it. That hyper-fixation on the opponent's emotional state completely undermines the idea of closure. It's exactly like a person who loudly claims they don't care at all about an ex-partner, but then spends an hour at a party detailing exactly why that ex is miserable without them.
I don't know if that's a fair comparison.
Why not? If the boundary is truly set, if the negotiation is over, why is the speaker still so tethered to dissecting the enemy's anger? The hyper-focus on "you can't understand the fact that it's over" ironically reveals that the speaker is the one who is still emotionally tethered to the conflict.
Well, I hear the ex-partner analogy, but I just don't buy that it applies here. Let me explain why. Identifying the opponent's anger isn't a symptom of being tethered. It is the ultimate act of dissecting and disarming the enemy's ego.
Disarming them?
Yes. In the realm of hip-hop bravado, which this track is heavily borrowing from, dismantling the psychology of your opponent is exactly how you claim the high ground.
So you see it more as a calculated takedown rather than an emotional bleed.
Exactly. It's surgical. When the lyric states, "it makes you so mad somebody else could be stepping in front of you," he isn't brooding over a lost relationship. He is holding up a mirror to the critic's petty insecurities.
Right, shining a light on it.
By articulating exactly why the opponent is upset, the speaker actually strips that opponent of their power. It takes the opponent's rage and reduces it to a pathetic, predictable reaction. That is why the vocal delivery feels cold. The speaker is operating like a surgeon, not a jilted lover. And this is exactly where your concept of information asymmetry works in my favor. The upbeat rhythm makes this surgical dismantling sound like a celebration. The beat is bouncy because the speaker has already won the psychological war.
Okay, that's a really fascinating way to frame it. If we are talking about surgical dismantling and changing the battlefield, then we have to look at how the guest verses fundamentally alter the song's ecosystem.
The collaborative shift.
Right, what you've termed the contextual weaponization of the track. Because if the primary verses are focused on this surgical takedown of petty interpersonal conflict and venomous enemies, how do you reconcile that with the massive, sweeping nature of Stormzy's guest feature? It feels like it belongs in a different song.
Well, you don't reconcile it. You recognize it as an elevation of the core theme. Stormzy's verse completely recontextualizes the concept of a good goodbye.
In what way?
He takes this idea of pushing away a specific venomous enemy and elevates it to a profound internal and systemic triumph. Stormzy shifts the target entirely. He isn't talking to a music critic on a bus.
No, he's definitely not.
He says, "Let me say goodbye to my demons. Let me say goodbye to my past. Let me say goodbye to the darkness." He even pushes into systemic boundaries. Goodbye to the stereotypes. You can't tell my kings, we can't.
He really widens the scope of the track there.
Immensely. And look at how he does it. He uses his signature grime cadence, this rapid, double-time flow that completely changes the kinetic energy of the track.
Yeah, it really accelerates the pacing.
He is using this massive platform, a commercial pop rap crossover hit, to enforce a boundary of self-preservation on a macro level. When he says, "Tell them that I'd rather be here where they love me," he is utilizing the upbeat, triumphant energy of the backing track to claim a safe space.
He also calls out the collaboration itself, right?
Yes, he explicitly points out the magnitude of the moment. Never seen a young black brother in the chart, now I got a tune with Linkin Park. He is using the monumental scale of this collaboration to definitively close a dark chapter and step into the light. That isn't weary sarcasm, that is a victory lap.
I completely acknowledge the undeniable power of Stormzy's verse. The thematic leap from an interpersonal annoyance to systemic triumph and overcoming personal demons is just staggering. But honestly, that's exactly where my problem with the track's cohesion lies.
You think it clashes?
I do. Do these deeply personal, triumphant verses actually align with the bitter sarcasm of the central hook. The core mandate of the song remains, pack it up and disappear. You better have some place to go, 'cause you can't come back around here.
Right.
When you place Stormzy's profound goodbye to his darkness next to the primary narrator calling someone an idiot and telling them to get on a bus, it creates a massive dissonant gap.
So you feel the contrast undermines the core message?
Yeah, I think Stormzy's verse inadvertently highlights the chord track's unresolved bitterness by contrast. Stormzy sounds like he has actually moved on and found victory. He sounds liberated.
And the central narrator?
The central narrator still sounds like they are trapped in a petty argument, utilizing the pop rap architecture not as a victory lap, but as a megaphone for their immediate frustration.
That is a highly compelling point. But consider the possibility that the dissonance you are hearing isn't a flaw in the song's cohesion. It is actually the sound of 3 different stages of processing trauma and conflict happening simultaneously.
Wait, 3 different stages? Break that down.
Think about how people process moving on from a toxic situation. Pusha T provides the hardened, militant boundary. He did his time with his cellmate, maxed out, and now he is airborne. He represents the intellectual closure.
Okay, I track with that.
Stormzy provides the spiritual and systemic liberation. He represents the emotional closure, the realization that you deserve to be where you are loved. And the central narrative, the lead vocal, provides the raw, immediate confrontation. It's the adrenaline spike of the actual fight.
So they're distinct but connected.
Exactly. They are 3 different angles of the same mechanism of expulsion, and that mechanism requires repetition to work, which brings us directly to the chaos element of the track, the anchoring hook.
Yes, the cyclical chanting, good goodbye, good goodbye, good goodbye, good goodbye. This is where the structural cohesion of your empowerment argument really gets tested.
How so?
If we look at the mechanics of lyrics and audio, repetition of this nature is almost universally a symptom of unresolved anxiety. If the bounty was truly set, if, as Pusha T says, the period is after every sentence, then the speaker would not need to endlessly repeat the dismissal. A true period requires silence afterward.
But silence doesn't make for a very good stadium anthem, does it?
No, it doesn't, but let's look at the psychology of why it's repeated. Instead of silence, we get this obsessive loop. It acts as a chaotic, angry engine driving the song.
You hear it as chaotic?
Completely. The polished production tries to dress it up as an anthemic, jump-up-and-down chorus. But psychologically, it is the sound of someone pacing a room, muttering goodbye over and over because the person they are talking to hasn't actually left their head.
Semantic satiation.
Exactly. When you repeat a phrase that many times, you invoke semantic satiation. The words start to lose their literal meaning and just become a vessel for raw emotion. The information asymmetry here is at its absolute peak. The bright synths and the BPM tell you to jump and sing along, but the lyrical repetition reveals a speaker who is stuck in a frustrating, weary loop.
See, I hear that repetition from a completely different paradigm. You are looking at the repetition as a symptom of being stuck, like a skipping record. But in almost every ancient and modern tradition, repetition is actually the vehicle for getting unstuck. It is a necessary mantra of healing.
A mantra? You're saying this aggressive pop rap hook is essentially a meditation?
Functionally, yes. Let's look at the physiological effect of chanting. When a massive crowd chants a phrase repeatedly, it regulates breathing, lowers cortisol, and creates a sense of shared physiological synchrony. It reduces stress.
That's true in a literal crowd setting, sure.
And let's draw directly on Stormzy's verse again. When he talks about saying goodbye to the darkness, he is talking about shedding heavy, oppressive forces. The central narrator is dealing with venomous enemies and a hell date. You do not wash away a hell date with a simple, polite dismissal. You can't just say goodbye once and expect the trauma to vanish.
So you're arguing the repetition is the work of clearing it out.
Precisely. The repetition of good, goodbye is ritualistic. It is an active, rhythmic shedding of the past. The commercial, upbeat pop element of the chorus is crucial here because it provides the kinetic energy needed to fuel that ritual.
So the beat drives the ritual.
Yes. By turning the dismissal into an anthemic, repetitive loop, the speaker is overpowering the lingering anxiety with sheer sonic force. It is not an obsessive pacing in a locked room. It is a march forward. The repetition is the sound of the boundary being fortified in real time, using the tempo to drive the demons out.
But see, fortification inherently implies an ongoing threat. If you are actively fortifying the boundary, the threat hasn't been neutralized, which means the weariness I am identifying remains the dominant emotional frequency of the core narrator.
I suppose that's one way to look at it.
This track relies so heavily on information asymmetry. The casual listener hears the driving beat, the high-profile rap features, and the catchy repetitive hook, and they process it as a straightforward pop-rap anthem. But when we perform this lyrical and audio autopsy, the complexities are just glaring.
They really are.
To summarize my position, the biting, sarcastic phrasing, combined with the micro-strains in the vocal delivery, the hyper-focus on the opponent's anger, and the obsessive repetition of the chorus, reveal a deeply weary frustration. The bravado is a veneer, the polished production is just an accessible wrapper hiding a core of unresolved exhaustion with a constant barrage of external criticism.
And to summarize my stance, I maintain that this track is a strategic masterpiece of boundary pushing. It uses the exact architecture of commercial hip-hop, the boastfulness, the precision strike collaborations, the anthemic repetitive hook, to definitively close a dark chapter.
Right.
Pusha T puts the period after every sentence. Stormzy says goodbye to his demons and claims his space where he is loved. The repetition of the chorus is not a symptom of being trapped. It is a powerful, active mantra of healing and expulsion. The track takes the painful reality of hailstorms and hell dates and weaponizes the upbeat pop structure to triumph over them.
Well, I think where we fundamentally converge today is on the sheer density of the material beneath the surface. Both of us agree that whether it is a cycle of unresolved frustration or a definitive ritualistic mantra of healing, there is a highly complex, aggressive mechanism at work here for dealing with hostility.
Oh, absolutely. The casual listener might simply nod along to the rhythm, completely missing the surgical takedown of an enemy's ego or the profound shedding of systemic demons occurring in the verses.
Exactly. It requires multiple perspectives to fully appreciate the audio and psychological mechanics at play. The brilliance of the track lies precisely in that information asymmetry. It invites you in with a sound that feels familiar, bright, and celebratory, but it challenges you with a lyrical coldness and finality that demands closer inspection.
It really does. It's the kind of song that asks you to decide what you're really listening to.
Are you hearing the catchy beat? Or are you hearing the hard Ks and Ts acting as weapons against the microphone? Are we hearing an artist who has been fighting longer than we've been alive and is just completely exhausted? Or are we hearing the calculated precision of someone utilizing the architecture of hip-hop to claim a final victory?
That is the question this track leaves echoing in the air, long after the final loop fades out.
And it is a question that requires us to look past the genre labels and really listen to the human voice underneath. Thank you for joining us for another rigorous exploration. Until next time.